There were many valid reasons behind the Beatles' decision to call it a day when they did, chief among them being the fact that, after a relentlessly intense decade together, the members could barely tolerate each other's presence. Tensions within the band had reached a breaking point, making separation feel almost inevitable. The group's two primary creative forces, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, had been drifting apart long before the official breakup. Their once close songwriting partnership had weakened significantly compared to the early years, as they increasingly worked independently. While this shift allowed each of them to develop a more distinct personal voice as a songwriter, it also marked one of the clearest warning signs that the band was coming apart. Among the remaining members, the situation looked slightly different. Ringo Starr was not as disillusioned with the band's dynamic, particularly given that he maintained a working relationship with Lennon after the split. George Harrison, meanwhile, was eager for greater creative freedom, having grown frustrated by the limited opportunities to contribute his own songs while the Beatles were still together. Even so, the ongoing conflict between Lennon and McCartney made it nearly impossible for the group's internal balance to survive, and going their separate ways appeared to be the only realistic path toward sustained individual success. At first, these internal struggles were largely a matter of speculation. That changed when Lennon and McCartney began releasing solo material that clearly took aim at one another, turning their private feud into a very public one early in their post-Beatles careers. McCartney, who was often perceived as the more level-headed of the two, fired the first shot with a song widely interpreted as a subtle critique of Lennon. Appearing on Ram, the album credited to Paul and Linda McCartney, the track included lines that Lennon understood as a pointed reference to the Beatles, that he had been responsible for the band's breakup. This interpretation reportedly irritated Lennon, who took the message personally. Lennon responded a few months later with a far more confrontational song, one that left little room for ambiguity. In it, he dismissed McCartney's legacy within the Beatles, implying that his meaningful contributions to the band were extremely limited. McCartney later seemed to regret how far the dispute had gone and attempted to extend an olive branch through a more heartfelt composition released later in 1971, despite the song having been written earlier. In a 2022 interview with his official fan website, he explained that Dear Friend, from Wings' debut album Wildlife, was intended as an apology to Lennon. He also admitted that listening to the song still deeply affects him emotionally, as it feels like a personal conversation with Lennon following all the turmoil surrounding the band's breakup. Although this attempt at reconciliation did not lead to a full reunion or any renewed musical collaboration, the public hostility between the two gradually faded. In light of Lennon's death less than a decade later, the song has since taken on even greater emotional weight, resonating as a painful reminder of what was lost before peace could truly be made.